And good afternoon, Madam President. I rise to kind of better understand this kind of unique journey that Senate Bill 998 has undertaken. And it originated in the Planning and Development Department. And I see that the good chairwoman of Housing is taking the bill out. And I must admit, I want to applaud her long and arduous, diligent, and quality work that has occurred in the Housing Committee. I find myself after a long day of committee work, and I get home and I turn on CTN, and at 10 o'clock, the housing hearing is still going on. So I want to compliment and applaud the members of the Housing Committee for their work. And that is what I'm rising to kind of ask some questions to the proponent of this bill being taken out by the Housing Commissioner, by the Housing Committee Chair. And I'll start by saying, I like this bill in Section 1 and 2. The reason I say that is because this was the original bill of Senate Bill 998. The original intent of this bill was to allow municipalities to adopt an ordinance that establishes a program to abate property taxes for qualifying portion of a taxpayer's land that are subject to conservation purposes, walking trails, public use, and to allow an application and municipal approval process that would allow a landowner to preserve their land in order that other people could enjoy it. And this bill would allow them to get some form of tax credit. In fact, dare I say, in speaking with members of the committee, it actually is one of the best bills that we put together in planning development. So compliments to the chair of planning development and to the ranking. It was a win-win land conservation and tax easement opportunity. Now, there was still a concern as we went through the process that this would put too much of a tax burden onerous back on the municipality. So as a result, the bill, upon a vote for joint favorable approval in planning development, was voted no by a number of our colleagues in the committee because of the concern of fiscal municipal tax burden relief that would be borne by our municipalities. The bill went to appropriations, I believe, and it went to finance with the same concern that although people supported the idea of this bill as its original concept, Senate Bill 998, abatement of conservation and land use, and in a collaborative bipartisan basis, an amendment was drafted with the leaders of Planning and Development Committee, and I was very honored and privileged to be included as part of the co-introducer of this amendment, that made it optional, that allow our municipalities the option, a degree of local respect and control that said, should a municipality want to collaborate with the landowner and create open spaces, trails for public use, that they could, not that they shall. That amendment that was passed out of this circle in mid-May received unanimous support. We made a good bill even better because we allowed the option of the various shareholders to have input. We allowed our municipalities, we can talk about local control, we gave them the opportunity of managing their own purse strings. So when the bill was sitting on the calendar, going down to the House, we were excited because this was a really good bill. The idea of combining local municipal options, but preservation of open space, land, the opportunity for our public to be able to enjoy and use this land was a plus. But something happened along the way. Something happened along the way. We took what was a really, really good bill that received bipartisan, unanimous, and collaborative solutions, and we added nearly, I lost count. I think we added nearly 40 plus sections to it. Was there germaneness? Perhaps. But I don't recognize this bill. And part of the reason for me to stand up and ask the proponent of this bill, and I apologize for the long intro, but people need to understand. This was a great bill that came out of planning and development that looked to preserve open space and gave our municipalities the option to choose if they wanted to give the tax abatement or not. What we just inserted in this in the House that has moved up, that received a very divisive and a very contested debate, is one of the biggest frustrations that people who try to follow us up in Hartford repeat over and over again, that what we do up here does not reflect, does not take into consideration, does not respect the representative process that should occur. So for me, even for me, this is no longer a planning and development bill on open space and tax abatement. It's one that includes very important bills, some of which that I strongly support. But there's potentially 40 of them that I have to understand. And through you, Madam President, could I ask the good proponent of this bill for some aspects of it, of which I'm not familiar with, but I would like to better understand and appreciate and support. There may be segments that I don't understand that I may educate and not support, but to be honest with you, more about what's happening in this bill. So through you, Madam President, through you, sections 1 and 2 of this analysis is the original bill of Senate Bill 998. Would that be correct? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Moore.
Thank you, Madam President. That is correct.
Senator Hwang.
Thank you very, very much. The other components ranging from section 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, they tend to go into rental and tenant relationships. Could you explain what bills were raised in public hearing and housing? Because I think the good proponent of this bill had offered earlier in my research, some of these bills did appear to have a public hearing, did have the public input. As I began earlier in my speech here today I remember many sitting in front of TV having my wife say to me, haven't you spent enough time in committee hearing? But I saw a lot of people who had interest, who gave their time and effort on a specific bill. I just wanted to acknowledge that it is folded into this and that those efforts, those public input and testimony did not go in vain. Whether pro or con, it's equally frustrating that I've heard from people that they were focusing on one bill. But unfortunately, it got squeezed into a mishmash of what we have here and now in Senate Bill 998. So through you, with the sections that I outlined here, could the good chairwoman offer and articulate some of the bills that were transparently held as a public hearing and discussed as a bill that I can make notations on through you, Madam President?
Senator Moore.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for the question. I want to assure you that OLR did a phenomenal job of identifying what bills we put into this omnibus bill and assure you that there was a public hearing. Senate Bill 908 was an act concerning the Housing Trust Fund. Senate Bill 907 was an act concerning fair rent commissions. Senate Bill 940, an act concerning walk-through inspections of rental property. Senate Bill 942, an act concerning rental application fees. Senate Bill 943, the return of security deposits upon the termination of tenancy. House Bill 678, an act concerning the Security Deposit Guarantee Program. House Bill 6666, an act expanding renters' rights. That included sexual orientation, security deposits, safe and sanitary housing. House Bill 6781, an act addressing housing affordability for residents in the state. Senate Bill Ford, an act concerning Connecticut's present and future housing needs. House Bill 6777, an act concerning property tax abatements for certain senior-owned deed-restricted properties. House Bill 6780, an act concerning tenant rights. House Bill 6633, an act concerning a needs assessment and fair share plans for municipalities to increase affordable housing. Through you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Hwang.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank the good chair for her preparedness. And I was running out of space, ma'am, with all of these bills that have now been incorporated into, again, Senate Bill 998, Sections 1 and 2. Again, a bill, if I may be redundant, that emphasize open space, trails, opportunity for people to be able to enjoy our environment, our natural habitat. And it gave the municipalities the local input and control in regards to control of their own taxation destiny. And now we have these litany of bills that the good Madam Chair has articulated that are incorporated into this bill. So through you, Madam President, I thank the good chair of the Housing Committee. Were all of these bills that originated from the Housing Committee? Maybe not. And number two, were all of these bills passed out of the committee with a joint favorable? And were any of these bills considered and voted on in the various floors of their origination, either being in the House or in the Senate? So it was a two-part question, and if the good chairwoman wants me to repeat, I'm happy to do so, but the two questions through you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Moore.
Through you, Madam President, thank you. All of these had a public hearing. They all came out of committee. The bills went to the House, and they're now here. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hwang.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you to the good chairwoman for her answer. Well, I just wanted to follow through, and it went to the House, but I guess curious, as I was writing down the notes, there were two bills that were Senate bills, and I believe as I wrote, it was Senate Bill 4 and Senate Bill 908. Was that voted on in this circle, and what was its result? Through you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Moore.
That bill was voted upon in committee and now is incorporated in here where it would be voted upon. So it did leave committee and it did get voted out of the committee.
Senator Hwang.
Thank you, and I appreciate the good chairwoman's clarification, but it was never voted in the circle. And I dare, if I may ask, we don't know the House, so I wouldn't want to put that burden onto the good chairwoman in the Senate. Were any of these House bills, perhaps she may know more than I, were any of these bills, I heard that they were voted out of committee, but were any of these House bills voted on the House floor for passage? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Moore.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you. All of these bills were voted in the House, and that's why the bill has been sent up to the Senate. It was voted upon with the format we're seeing today.
Senator Hwang.
Thank you, and I appreciate that distinction. Indeed, this amendment has a comprehensive bill was voted on in the House. But through you, my question was much more specific, that each of these individual bills that were offered as individual bills that had people that provided testimony, pro and con, expert feedback, people had a vested interest in this, were they voted on individually in the House and passed through? as it did in committee. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Moore.
Through you, Madam President, I believe they were voted on as a package, and I'm not sure, to be clear, I wasn't in the House, so I don't know if they were voted on individually.
Senator Hwang.
Thank you. And again, I want to thank the good chair for her answers and her patience. And that's the problem I have with this bill. Because there are a lot of good sections here that I like. And if I can be forgiven, I'm going to repeat back to 1 and 2. It's one of the best bills we did in planning and development. But unfortunately, it has now been lumped into many bills that I didn't have a chance to really vet, that many people opposed to, and I only have one vote. I don't have the opportunity of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 different votes that I could have had for a bill to stand on its own merit. So that is one of my questions and problems with this. I don't expect the good chairwoman to answer them. I'm just simply voicing my frustration. I wish I could vote on the old 998, section 1 and 2. I'd be happy and thrilled and enthusiastic in supporting it. But unfortunately, there are sections that I don't support. For example, section 18, ma'am. The fair share housing allocation methodology. Again, call me silly, but I listened to that hearing from my home, and I couldn't get enough of it because it was a priority issue in my former experience as the chair of housing and as a ranking member of housing and planning and development. This is an issue that's been brought forth many a times. I want to compliment and applaud the advocacy and the champion of this fair share concept by many of the advocates, but also the majority leader who has done an incredible and passionate belief in the value of its purpose and methodology, and should it be implemented to solve our housing needs crisis in the state of Connecticut. But unfortunately, the numbers for me do not add up on fair share. We point to certain communities and states that have undertaken this fair share calculus. And after a number of years of implementation of a shining example, we're starting to see the end result of the impracticality of an analytical methodology. Real estate, like healthcare, does not fit in a package of analytical analysis because it's deeply personal. It is someone's home. It is someone's habitat. It's someone's treasure. It doesn't sometimes make analytical and statistical sense. And what we have seen in the past examples of entities and communities that have undertaken it is great idea, great concept, a great need for that solution, but it doesn't work. So why are we looking to mandate an idea and force it upon our communities? We've talked a lot about Section 8-30G in this building and in our communities. It's over 30 years old. I'm happy to say that I was part of a group that made a slight change to that formula in the hopes that any bit of change could bring forth a better change, a better solution. But fast forward 5+ years later, you know what? There was a sunset provision, and we're going back to the same old formula because it didn't work. It didn't work to change. So we're going to go back to the same formula that over 30+ years have shown it does not work. We still have the problem at hand. So now we're going to try another one. We're going to keep 830G, and we're going to add the fair share. Because what didn't work for 30 plus years, that's still on the burden of our communities and our homeowners and property owners and municipalities, we're going to add something else to it. We're going to add the fair share and add another mandate and calculation to say, you're going to do it. Because the state knows better than your local elected officials, your local planning and zoning board, your local inland and wetland and conservation experts. The state knows better because we have a bigger mission. I share that mission. But I've also seen it doesn't work. I have always believed, and I've offered to the good chairwoman, who has been a tremendous and passionate advocate for housing accessibility and affordability. I've offered to her that I would be happy to go to these various communities, to find the solutions that would make a difference and really sustainable way address this issue. I want to compliment the governor in the latest budget that we approved. He has allocated significant money. We are talking significant money to try to address this solution. I volunteer now, and I'll volunteer in the days ahead, and you can hold me to it. I would be happy to work with the advocates to go to those communities that are deficient and have been historically deficient, to go and put forth this money to good use and find the necessary solutions. Because what we have in this bill, although great ideas, great advocacy, trying to address a problem that I believe and agree with that we need to solve, it's one way. Instead of a collaborative effort with local, state, and federal entities to craft a plan that's sustainable, that's viable, that fits in each unique community, whether it be urban, rural, or suburban, we've planned in this plan, cobbled in with nearly 20 plus bills, an idea that says the state of Connecticut, for us sitting in this circle under this beautiful building of a dome, that we know better than you do. I don't believe that. So, the fair share, there are other smarter people in this building with far more better analytical examples. All I know is in hearing from the people from New Jersey and elsewhere that have implemented fair share with a noble goal of reaching what we're trying to strive to get here for housing, it hasn't worked. Just as anybody who is either opposed or a passionate advocate of A30G, 30 years plus later, we can all agree it hasn't worked. But we're not going to change it. We're not going to reevaluate it. But you've heard that phrase before in this building quite a bit. Another definition that if you do the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different result, you're just not dealing with reality. So I've said my piece on some of this, but I will say this. I am torn in having to vote on this bill as one vote, a yay or nay, and be judged by that. When I wish I had an opportunity to vote yay or nay on 14, 15, 16 different bills. I wish I had a chance to vote yay or nay on Senate Bill 998 in its original form, where I could proudly say, I support open space. I support our communities and landowners who said, I want to share the treasure of my space and get some tax credit so I can live in the community that I love. But it's ironic that's placed into a bill that says, in addition to that, if somebody next door buys something, I can put a 4-story building, I can build up multiplexes, and you know what? The state tells me that I've got to live with it. That's ironic. isn't it? So I struggle with this bill because there are sections here that I really like. And I'll point out some of it, and I'd love to ask of the proponent of the bill to kind of explain some of it, because some of this language that has been brought forth has appeared in past years. And I have the same questions that I'd like to ask the proponent of the bill, especially Section 17. I would defer to the majority leader, ma'am.
Thank you, Senator Hwang. Senator Duff.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to Senator Hwang for having me interrupt his speech.
President, thank you, majority leader. It's a hard act to follow that. And congratulations to the honoree. Well deserved. As I was saying, through you, Madam President, to the good chair of Housing and the chair of the subcommittee on bonding, who I value and treasure working with, to Section 17, the Office of Responsible Growth, the OPM Office of Responsible Growth. Does that office exist now, or are we statutorily creating it? And will it have a fiscal note? And did we provide it in the budget? It's a multiple set of questions, but it's encompassed on the OPM Office of Responsible Growth. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Moore.
Thank you, Madam President. The question is, are we establishing a new office?
No, through you, Madam President, if I may.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much. We are establishing through the statute. It's a statutorily created office within the Office of Policy and Management. We are creating a new entity. Will it have a fiscal note, and has it existed before in any bit of format? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Moore.
Thank you, Madam President. This is a successor agency, committee. The Office of Policy Management, OPM, Intergovernmental Policy Division, is a successor of the office of the same name, established by executive order in 2006. It does have a fiscal note. It assigns responsibilities to the Office of Responsible Growth, and it's the results cost of $71,147 for one additional person in '24, and a cost of $213,441 for two additional positions in '25. And it has to OPM and associated fringe costs of $30,465 in year '24 and $91,395 in year '25. Thank you.
Senator Hwang.
Thank you. And I want to thank the good chair of Housing for explaining, because that was not an easy answer. And indeed, as I understand it, just to confirm, the office originally was the Intergovernmental Policy Division, and it was established by executive order in 2006. And if I recollect, in my past experience in the Housing Committee and in planning development and deliberations on bills, it has never met. It has never met. So through you, Madam President, can the good chair of Housing validate if there has been any history since 2006, when it was created, that the agency has met? And the reason I ask that is the fact that we are now replacing this agency and staffing it with entities, but it will in essence be a brand new agency that, even though we outline there's a track record, it has no history of experience, no history of understanding the cycle that we've gone through since the iteration of A30G's implementation, all the hundreds and thousands of hours of public hearing and engagement and bill proposals. This was an agency that was developed in 2006. It's going to be disbanded, but it's in the form of a new agency. But it has no experience, none. So we're going to create something from brand new. Could the good chair articulate, maybe I missed something, that this agency group that was established by executive order in 2005 has had experience and an understanding of the unique challenges of housing needs in the state of Connecticut. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Moore.
Thank you. Through you, Madam President, I have no knowledge of what happened between 2006 and today.
Senator Hwang.
Through you.
Thank you. And if my notes reflect and my past debates on this, I can affirm that they have never met. They have never gotten together. So I'm encouraged that we are now funding it appropriately and that we have put an additional emphasis of staffing. And my hope is that we can build a track record of better understanding the unique challenges, and I hope they will engage with all shareholders. But my frustration is we have now imbued it with power to make determinations when the past record since 2006, a previous agency hadn't even bothered to meet. I just point that out, and that's my frustration. But let me go on, if I may. This is going to be good because these are issues that I actually like. But the problem is it's thrown in, and I'm not going to be able to have a choice because I only have one vote. It's a yay or nay. And I'm not going to be able to support these great ideas. So perhaps maybe I'll just put it on the record so it doesn't come out that I hate all these issues. Let me be clear. I love the idea of Section 24 and 25, Madam Chair, of housing, the real estate conveyance tax exemption and transfers. It helps us in regards to individuals with de-restricted housing and dwelling units to be able to get some aspect of real estate conveyance and relief should they want to do that, to be able to provide affordable housing stock and to be able to, upon selling, get some tax relief. Incentivize people through various methodologies, through their own initiative, to create affordable and diverse and accessible housing, not a top-down. This is an example where our policies could empower people to do what is needed to find solutions. I like 26, Section 26, that reiterates again that we cannot, should not, and never should discriminate based upon sexual orientation. I'm glad we put that into the statute. I fully support that. Sections 28 to 35. Workforce housing development. I've made many proposals relate. I have senators in this circle that have believed that workforce housing is an essential component to creating a viable, sustainable, and vibrant workforce. Senator Martin, Senator Ciccarella, along many other senators, have advocated for workforce housing development as part of a workforce development initiative. I'm glad this is in the bill. I'm glad that we have incorporated that. But it wasn't a part of Section 1 and 2. But I'm redundant. This was a standalone bill offered by many of our colleagues in this General Assembly that did not get a chance to shine and reiterate how much we all, on a bipartisan basis, support workforce development housing. It's unfortunate that it is lumped into this bill because I think it's a great idea. The amendment that was offered by Senator Fazio on Section 36 to create an affordable housing roundtable group, to expand the group, to bring different ideas, maybe even strongly differing ideas that could create a more viable and sustainable and realistic policy of implementation. We just passed a budget that had compromise. Had some things we liked, had some things we didn't, but a compromise incorporates viewpoints. We celebrated and we supported, well, most of us did, because everybody had their ideas offered. everybody had their ideas vetted. We took some good, we took some bad. The majority and the governor had the purview, but we took these ideas, and people felt as though they were heard. This work group idea that was offered earlier would have been working toward that direction. I'm disappointed it failed. And 37, we did a little house cleaning. Just as we have updated the Office of Responsible Growth, we're now eliminating the Housing Trust Fund Program Advisory Committee. Again, as I recollect in my records, not as well versed in that area, I don't think they've ever met either. See, great ideas that happen in the circle, and the great minds of all of us in this circle. Many years in its implementation, they never met. They never found solutions. The last bill section I like is 42, school building project reimbursement rates. We're going to look at inclusive municipalities and make them eligible for 5 percentage point increases from their state grant reimbursement. I think it's a great idea. But through you, Madam President, I was a little curious. I couldn't find the definition. What is an inclusive municipality? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Moore.
Could we stand at ease for a moment, Madam President?
We can stand at ease.
Madam President,
Senator Moore, please go ahead.
thank you. Under the bill, local and regional boards of education are located in inclusive municipality as determined by the Department of Housing Commissioner. Through you, Madam.
Senator Hwang.
Thank you very, very much. And I have
Just
great.
multitasking over here.
We're recognizing young, talented people. I'm happy to support that. Through you, ma'am, I have great confidence in our housing commissioner. But are there criteria set by this statute to include? Is it by lines districts? Is it by geographic? Is it by demographic? Is it by financial? Through you, what is defined either by this statute or by the Department of Housing, what an inclusive municipality? The reason I ask that is not to trick anything, but there may be many municipalities that would like to be considered in that if they qualify, because an opportunity to have a 5 percentage point increase in their state grant would be very much welcome if they fit within the criteria. So through you, for a point of clarification, what criteria are we utilizing to define? And the example would be we define alliance districts in education as one aspect, but through you, Madam President, what is defined as an inclusive municipality in order to qualify for this 5-point increase in grant, which I think is a great idea. Through you, Madam President.
Thank you. Senator Moore.
Thank you, Madam President. A total population greater than 6,000, generally based on the more recent of the U.S. Census Bureau's count, a newest decimal census or current population report series available January 1st of a fiscal year, 2 years before the fiscal year in which the grant will be paid, a share of affordable housing units that is less than 10% of its total housing as determined by the Department of Housing Commissioner, adopted and currently maintain zoning regulations that A, promote fair housing as determined by the Commissioner, provide a streamlined approval process for multifamily housing development of 3 units or more, permit mixed-use development and and allow accessory dwelling units in built new affordable housing units that are deed restricted to households whose income are 80% or less of the state median income and be equal at least 1% of the municipality's total housing units in the 3 years immediately before the municipality's application. Through you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Hwang.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman of the Housing. That was very helpful. Just as a point of reference, I might not heard, was it a population minimum of 8,000 or 6,000? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Moore.
Through you, Madam President, a population greater than 6,000.
Greater than 6,000. So thank you. So hypothetically, through you, Madam President, to the chair, I'm using as an example for my good fellow senator, mayor of their wonderful town of Wilton. 18,000, 16,000, and they have a affordable housing plan and all the criteria that you set. So would they be considered an inclusive municipality, and should they make an application to be part of this inclusive? They would be receiving. It is not an issue of economics nor academic, but it is based on the criteria you just shared, that towns like Wilton could apply and qualify as and define as an inclusive community and receive the state education grant of 5 points higher. If that is a confirmation, you're going to make a lot of people in suburban, rural communities very, very happy. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Moore.
Through you, Madam President. It is true with the 6,000, if that
6,000.
town applies, but there's other criteria also associated with that. So that is not the only criteria.
Senator Hwang.
Thank you, Madam President. So I understand that, and I would be very eager to follow up to get that criteria basis. But again, I don't recollect, and maybe I missed it. Does it have academic parameters, socioeconomic parameters? I didn't hear them as defining criteria to be considered as inclusive communities, because if that is indeed the case, it would open up opportunities for many of the suburban communities that have been subject and in some ways characterized as not doing their fair share in regards to housing dynamics. A 5% additional state grant in regards to their academics and education would be another carrot instead of the stick that we hear so much about of mandates to incentivize our towns to initiate and innovate to facilitate housing. So through you, Madam President, does any of the criteria offer socioeconomic, academic, or any other defining criteria that would eliminate municipalities to qualify for an inclusive municipality for this additional 5-point state grant?
Through you, Madam President, I don't see anything on academic, but I do see that they had to build affordable housing units that are deed restricted to households whose income are 80% or less of the state median income. And they must have a share of affordable units that is less than 10% of its total housing. I do not see anything on academia. Through you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Hwang.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank the good chair for her guidance on this, and that is welcome news. And this was a part where, again, as I undertook this bill, there were a lot of things I didn't know. And now upon learning it, I think it'd be very encouraging, and I'd love to get some additional feedback from the municipalities I represent that could qualify for this additional 5-point grant, should this pass, even with dissenting votes. But maybe communities like Westport, Fairfield, Easton, dare I say even Greenwich, could have an opportunity to utilize this provision of this to get additional grant. Through you, my final question is there a limit to requests for this additional 5-point grant? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Moore.
Could we stand at ease for just a moment, please, Madam
Please
President?
stand at ease.
Thank you. Through you, Madam President.
Yes,
I
Senator.
don't see anything in here about the dollar amount. I only see the percentage.
Thank you, Senator Hwang.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll close by thanking again the good chairwoman of the Housing Committee and a fellow leader on the bonding subcommittee. And I'll close by simply saying I struggle with this, one, because it's been a process that's been compromised. Senate Bill 998 in itself was a great bill. We made it even better. But unfortunately, through the political process that I believe sometimes lacked transparency, lacked the due process that is important, that we always talk about valuing so much, that we now have jammed in a number of sections into a good bill. And it still is, in some cases, with many its different facets, when they're standalone bills, good concepts. But unfortunately, we've tacked on some components that many people may find objectionable. But the frustration is, you have one vote. You have one vote that will define how you feel about this bill. And there was no ranking member input. There was no minority party input. There was no divergent or differing viewpoints. It was the majority. It is the one power that makes the decision, that we are now forced to make that vote. I can see it now. Senator Hwang votes against school building projects. We vote against real estate conveyance. We vote against housing discrimination. That's not good policy. That's opportunistic. And it's very frustrating and very disappointing that we worked very hard in the Planning and Development Committee on a bill that I was very proud to be a part of. But now I'm forced to debate nearly 43 sections of bills that the good chairwoman articulated came from other bills that did not have a vote individually in either chamber. That is not transparent representative process. I would have gladly voted on the other 12 bills on its merit and supported them, perhaps, and object to the fair share component, but I don't have a choice. And I think people need to understand that upon this vote. So I'll leave on this note. I look forward to listening to the other colleagues here, because there may be other parts of this bill that I may not have read or learned about. But I'm deeply frustrated by the process. But I'm going to close on a positive note and thank my good chairwoman of the Housing Committee for her answers and for her patience and for good cheers and diligence on the final day of the legislative session. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Hwang. Will you remark